This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance. Welcome to the Luxembourg Fundcast. Before we continue, we'd like to mention that the Luxembourg Fundcast is created and produced by Bertrand Mariot, a practicing regulatory lawyer admitted to the Luxembourg and Paris bars. The mission of this podcast is to bring clear, free, and reliable information sourced from official references that are carefully curated and continually updated and refined through high-standard evolving prompt and context engineering on Luxembourg's financial regulation and investment funds to professionals and anyone interested in the Luxembourg Financial Center. Welcome, everyone. Today, for this deep dive, we're looking at something pretty fundamental that's shifted here in Luxembourg, and we're current as of October 4th, 2025. We're talking about the Register of Beneficial Owners, the RBE.
That's right. It's undergone a huge reform, really a complete pivot.
A pivot is a good word, because it used to be all about open public access, right? For transparency.
Maximum transparency was the goal, but now it's swung towards, qualified confidentiality. Risk-based.
And this wasn't Luxembourg acting in isolation, was it? There was a major catalyst.
Oh, absolutely. The big one was the Court of Justice of the European Union, the CJEU. Their ruling back in November 2022 basically said that the old system, unrestricted public access, went too far.
Too far in terms of fundamental rights, privacy, data protection.
Precisely. The court found it was a serious interference and disproportionate. So Luxembourg, like others, had to react.
And now, a couple of years down the line, we're seeing the full impact of that reaction. What are the key things people need to grasp now?
Okay, I think it boils down to three critical takeaways. First, access is no longer a given. Forget the open door policy. It's closed. Access now is restricted. It's tiered. This changes everything for due diligence.
Okay, access restricted. What's number two?
Second, the regulator has new teeth. The LBR, the Luxembourg Business Registers, it's not just a filing cabinet anymore. It's an active supervisor. It has serious new administrative enforcement powers and penalties that escalate quickly.
All right, so more proactive enforcement. And the third takeaway?
Third, compliance is now strategic. Managing your RBE information isn't just admin anymore. It's not a tick box exercise.
You mean it's moved up the agenda?
Way up. It hits core governance, internal processes, board involvement, and even how you price your services if you're a provider. It's strategic, absolutely.
Okay, let's maybe unpack the history just a little, see how we got here. The RBE itself came from that 2019 law, didn't it? Following the EU's fifth AML directive.
It did. And back then, the directive and Luxembourg's law pushed for that general public access. The thinking was, sunlight is the best disinfectant for fighting money laundering.
But the CJEU saw a flaw in that approach. What was the core legal problem they identified?
It came down to proportionality. The court essentially said, yes, fighting financial crime is vital, a legitimate objective.
Sure.
But, they continued, giving everyone unrestricted access to personal data like beneficial ownership information, well, that's a step too far. It wasn't proportionate to the goal. It seriously impacted privacy and data protection rights under the EU Charter.
So the method was the issue, not the aim.
Exactly. The aim was fine, the method wasn't. And Luxembourg's response was immediate suspend public access, which, of course, created a bit of a vacuum for a while.
Until the new legislation came along. The law of January 2025 and the Grand Ducal Regulation in March 2025. This is the framework we operate under now.
That's the one. It tries to strike that new balance, respecting the court's ruling on privacy, but also, importantly, beefing up the LBR's supervisory role.
Which leads us nicely into deconstructing this new access regime. It's tiered, you said.
Yes, tier access. Think of it in layers. Tier 1, national authorities. This is your CSSF, your tax authorities, law enforcement, prosecutors.
The official bodies.
Right. They still get full, unrestricted access, everything. They need it for their jobs, for supervision, for investigations. No change there, really.
Okay, that makes sense. Then Tier 2. This sounds like where most of our listeners might sit.
Very likely. Tier 2 is for professionals. So banks, law firms, auditors, corporate service providers, fund managers, basically anyone already subject to AML-CFT obligations.
And their access is for?
Strictly for client due diligence, performing their KYC-ML checks. That's it.
But it's not just automatic access anymore, is it? You mentioned a change there.
No, far from automatic. This is a really significant procedural hurdle now. Professionals have to enter into a specific formal access agreement directly with the LBR.
An agreement?
Like a contract.
Pretty much. It sets out the terms, the conditions under which they can access the data, and crucially, it makes their access auditable.
Auditable? That sounds potentially burdensome. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah.
Can the LBR actually check up on why a bank, say, looks someone up?
That's exactly what it implies. The LBR has the power to verify that every single search made by a professional under this agreement was genuinely linked to a specific client due diligence file.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can't just browse. You can't check competitors or do, idle fishing expeditions.
But firms need really strong internal logs justifying every search.
Absolutely. Robust internal controls, clear audit trails, documentation justifying each access. It's a new layer of internal governance and, frankly, cost.
Okay. And Tier 3, the legitimate interest category. This sounds the most complex.
It is, by far, because here, access isn't granted by status, like for authorities or professionals. You have to apply for it.
Apply to the LBR.
Yes, a formal written request explaining why you need the information. You have to demonstrate a legitimate interest.
And the LBR decides, case by case.
Case by case. They have to weigh your reason against the potential privacy intrusion. It's a balancing act, and the law sets a pretty high bar.
Who might qualify? Any examples?
The law gives some non-exhaustive examples. Think professional journalists, but specifically those working on stories related to money laundering for recognized Luxembourg or EU media.
Well,
Or certain nonprofit organizations whose statutory mission is genuinely focused on preventing and fighting money laundering.
right.
Or maybe a business about to enter a major transaction. If they can show a concrete reason why they need to check the counterparty's UBOs to avoid getting involved in financial crime, they might qualify, but they'd have to argue it very persuasively.
So it's definitely not an easy route. And what data do these different tiers actually see? Is it the same for everyone?
No. Another key difference. Only Tier 1 authorities see the full data set.
Everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Tiers 2 and 3, the professionals and the legitimate interest folks, they see a limited data set.
Limited how?
They'll typically see the beneficial owner's name, their nationality, country of residence, and the nature and extent of the interest held, like the percentage range.
But not everything. What's excluded?
Sensitive personal details are shielded. Things like precise private home addresses or national identification numbers. That kind of granular data is generally kept back from Tiers 2 and 3.
That's a really important point for due diligence, isn't it? If you can't get that pinpoint identification data from the RBE.
Exactly. It means the RBE data becomes a crucial starting point, but it often can't be the endpoint of your verification. You have to use other reliable, independent sources to corroborate the information, especially if you only have limited access.
Okay, so access is tighter, tiered, and the data itself might be limited depending on who you are. Let's pivot to the consequences side. The LBR's new teeth.
Right. The enforcement piece.
We know the big criminal sanctions were always there. Knowingly filing false info could mean fines up to 1.25 million euros. That hasn't changed, has it?
No, those criminal penalties remain on the books. Serious stuff. But what's new is the LBR's administrative enforcement power.
Okay, what does that involve?
It means the LBR isn't just passively receiving filings anymore. It's empowered to be an active supervisor.
How so?
It can proactively monitor compliance. It can cross-check the RBE data against other official registers, like the Trade and Companies Register, the RCS.
Looking for inconsistencies.
Precisely. It can launch its own investigations into company structures if something looks odd. It can issue official warnings, and this is the big one. It can impose administrative penalties.
Administrative penalties.
Right.
Like fines.
Yes, including potentially daily fines for ongoing non-compliance. This is separate from the criminal track. It's quicker, more direct enforcement by the LBR itself.
So mistakes or delays could get costly fast.
Very fast. And nothing shows that more clearly than the new late filing fee system.
Ah, yes. The Grand Ducal Regulation from March 2025 introduced that. Tell us about it.
It's quite brutal, frankly, and importantly, it's harmonized. It applies equally to late filings for both the RBE and the RCS.
Okay, so one system for both registers. How does it work?
It escalates with time. If you miss your filing deadline, say the 1-month deadline for an RBE update, and you slip into the second month of delay, bam, 50 euros fee.
Okay, 50 euro.
Manageable, maybe, but if that delay stretches into the third or fourth month, it jumps to 200 euros.
Right, a bigger hit.
And if you're still non-compliant from the 5th month onwards, it's 500 euros.
Per filing. Per entity.
The details would depend on the specifics, but yes, it's structured to penalize continued delay significantly. It makes missing deadlines really quite painful financially.
And that harmonization point is critical, isn't it? Linking RBE and RCS penalties.
Absolutely critical, because it forces companies and their service providers to have a completely integrated compliance calendar. You can't afford to let any filing slip, whether it's updating UBO info or filing annual accounts. The penalty mechanism is the same.
It basically institutionalizes the cost of administrative error or delay.
Perfectly put. Calendar management just become a core risk management function.
Which leads us straight into the practical implications. What's the new playbook for, say, a corporate secretary or a compliance team?
The playbook has definitely changed. It's shifted from just processing filings to proactive, defensible governance.
Defensible, meaning you have to be ready to justify things to the LBR.
Exactly. Take UBO identification. Your methodology for identifying the ultimate beneficial owners needs to be rock solid.
Especially if it's complex. Or if you end up naming senior managers.
Particularly then.
Yeah.
If you can't find someone meeting the 25% threshold and you have to identify senior managing officials as the default UBOs, you need a well-documented rationale.
You need to show you're working, essentially.
You need to show you're working, prove why you selected those individuals. That documentation has to stand up if the LBR comes asking questions. It's not just about being right. It's about being provably right.
And does the board need to be more involved now?
Definitely. RBE compliance shouldn't be buried in operational reports. Reviewing the RBE status, approving filings, that needs to be a formal, standard item on the board agenda.
So a board resolution before each filing.
That's best practice,
Yeah.
Absolutely. It creates an essential paper trail showing board oversight, which, by the way, aligns perfectly with the CSSF's expectations on robust internal governance, like in Circular 2758.
Makes sense. And operationally, any must-haves.
Given those escalating penalties we talked about, I'd say a dual control system for data entry is pretty much mandatory now.
A four eyes principle.
Yes. And rigorous automated calendar reminders for both RBE and RCS deadlines. You simply cannot afford to rely on manual tracking anymore. The risk is too high.
Okay, that's the internal picture. What about external relationships, especially for service providers like domiciliation agents or corporate service firms? This increases their risk too, right?
Hugely. They're often the ones doing the filing. If their client is slow providing information or gives bad information, the service provider could be exposed to those LBR penalties.
So they need to update their client agreements urgently.
Absolutely urgently. Remember, the law kicked in February 1st, 2025. If agreements haven't been reviewed and updated since then, the service provider is carrying significant unmitigated risk.
What are the essential clauses they need in those updated agreements?
I'd say 3 are non-negotiable. First, a clear client obligation to inform.
Meaning, the client has to tell them about UBO changes quickly.
Yes. Contractually obligate the client to notify the provider of any change within a very tight time frame, maybe 5 business days. This gives the provider time to meet that statutory 1-month filing deadline.
Okay, clear client duty. What's second?
Second, a strong client warranty and indemnification. The client must warrant that the data they provide is accurate and complete.
And if it's not, and the provider gets fined?
The client indemnifies the provider, covers them for any administrative or even criminal penalties that result from the client's bad data.
That seems crucial. And the third clause?
The third protects the service provider directly, a strict limitation of liability.
Limiting their own responsibility.
Yes. The provider's liability should be strictly limited only to their own gross negligence in the mechanical act of filing. Did they mess up the data entry? Okay, maybe liable. But liability for the substance of the information, for its accuracy, that risk needs to be carved out and remain firmly with the client who provided it.
Without these, the service provider is essentially ensuring the client's compliance failures.
Precisely. It's just not sustainable.
Which also implies that the way services are priced needs to change, doesn't it? The old flat annual fee model seems inadequate now.
It's largely obsolete for anything beyond the simplest structures. The risk profile has shifted dramatically. That flat fee used to cover passive filing.
Right.
Now it implicitly covers managing potential LBR inquiries, dealing with access requests, documenting board approvals, and carrying the risk of penalties. That's a lot more administrative overhead and risk.
So what are the alternatives?
We're seeing 2 main models emerge. One is a cost-plus model.
How does that work?
You have a base fee covering the standard compliance work. But any extra effort responding to an LBR query, handling a Tier 3 access application for someone else, gets billed hourly on top of the base.
Okay, reflects actual work done. What's the other model?
The other is a tiered or risk-based model. Here, the pricing is directly linked to the complexity of the client structure.
So a simple holding company pays less than a complex multi-layered fund structure.
Exactly, because identifying and documenting UBOs for that complex structure is far more work, involves more judgment calls, and potentially carries more regulatory scrutiny risk. Higher risk, higher complexity equals a higher fee. It reflects the actual work and risk involved.
And service providers need to be having these conversations with clients now.
They should have started back in February 2025. Proactively renegotiating contracts and explaining the new pricing rationale is just sound commercial practice in this new environment.
Looking bigger picture now. This RBE reform, is it just a Luxembourg thing or part of a wider trend?
Oh, definitely part of a much wider, irreversible trend across the EU and globally. It's all moving towards greater transparency, yes, but also greater emphasis on governance and real substance.
How so? What else points in that direction?
Well, look at the upcoming interconnection of national RBEs. There's going to be a European central platform linking them all up.
Making cross-border checks easier.
Dramatically easier, and demanding much more consistency in data across different member states. You won't be able to have conflicting information sitting in different national registers.
Okay, so increased scrutiny there. Anything else?
Think about substance requirements generally. We're seeing this reinforced elsewhere, like in the new rules expected under AIFMD2.
The Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive?
Yes. The focus there is increasingly on demonstrable substance, things like needing actual people, full-time employees based in the EU to run the fund manager. It's the same underlying principle. Regulators want to see real activity, real governance, not just brass plates or opaque structures.
And the CSSF is pushing this locally too.
Consistently. Their message, especially through circulars like 2758, is clear. RBE compliance isn't a silo. It has to be woven into your entire internal governance framework, your risk management processes. It's all connected.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up with our main takeaways again. It feels like a lot has changed.
It has, but the core messages are clear.
First, that idea of open public access to the RBE. Gone. It's now qualified, tiered access. You need a reason and maybe an agreement to get in.
Correct. Access is conditional.
Second, the LBR isn't passive anymore. It's an active enforcer with real administrative penalties, especially those escalating late fees that hit both RBE and RCS filings.
Right. Compliance deadlines are now critical risk points.
And third, managing the RBE is no longer just admin. It's become a strategic issue affecting governance, board oversight, internal processes, and even the commercial terms between clients and service providers.
Absolutely. It demands strategic thinking and operational upgrades.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners navigating this new landscape.
I'd say the most valuable skill right now isn't just understanding the law, though that's crucial. It's the ability to translate that complex legal reform, the new access rules, the enforcement risks, into practical, defensible business strategy.
And into commercial terms that make sense.
Exactly. Turning regulatory change into sound business practice and fair commercial agreements. That's the real challenge and the real opportunity.
This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance. This podcast is a collaborative and free resource that improves continually, so your comments or requests for new topics are highly welcome, especially on YouTube. We want to be a helpful strength for everyone working in the Luxembourg Financial Center at all levels. We are often asked how you can help us. Well, a great way to help is by subscribing to our shows on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, as well as on Apple Podcasts, where a 5-star rating would really help us. You can also like our videos and subscribe to our Rigore Media YouTube channel. All relevant links will be available in the show notes. For our French-speaking listeners, you can also find our sister podcast in French. It was the Luxembourg Fundcast for you today. Final disclaimer. This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance.